The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz along with my co-host Tony Palmeri. On this edition, we're very pleased to welcome two of the newest members of the Oshkosh Common Council to the show. They were just elected 8 months ago as we tape this, and we're happy to welcome Meredith Scheuermann to my left, and to her left, Councilman Bain. So thank you very much for both being here, especially with snow coming down yet again tonight as we tape. So
Thanks,
we appreciate it. I guess first thing we want to talk about, you're 8 months into your first term for both of you. Are you pleased you ran, or would you just as soon say, who needs this headache?
Would you like to go first?
Absolutely. I knew what I was getting myself into. I knew that it was going to be challenging. I knew it was going to be time consuming. I knew it would be, I'd have phone calls and there'd be headaches. But I also knew that it was something that I had to do at that time, and so I am so glad that I did it. And I feel like I'm in the heat of it. Just got done with the budget process, and it was long, and it was hard, and it was frustrating, and all that. I won't lie, but certainly glad that I'm up there.
Okay, Bryan, what about you?
Yes, without a doubt, I'm very happy that I ran, and it is a lot of work. And what I have found is, it's interesting. If you go out and say, I want to hear from you, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, there are a lot of people who will take you up on that, and you have to really be willing to have that happen, whether it's a telephone call at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, or if it's Sunday afternoon in the grocery store when your ice cream's melting in your cart. So either way, where it happens, you have that. But I'm very happy about it.
Sure.
And, I agree with Meredith. There are some things that have been eye-opening in the first 8 months, and you certainly kind of get a better perspective of how slow things do have to work sometimes, and the hoops that you have to go through. But it's very rewarding.
Can you give us one example of an eye-opener?
I think the budget process was a big eye-opener for both of us.
Well, let's talk about that.
Sure.
As you both know, one thing the council voted on in that budget agreement was a garbage fee that'll be coming in 2006, correct? The last
October.
3 months?
Yeah.
It's wildly unpopular,
It was with us as well.
Yeah.
but you voted for it.
Ultimately,
You didn't
at
have
the
to
end.
vote for the budget. So in order not to have the garbage fee, you had to find $600,000 in cuts
Right.
somewhere.
Right.
The council couldn't find $600,000.
Well, there were opportunities, I think. There were 3 proposals that got defeated. Burke Tower had 1, and I had 2. And all 3 of those went down. And finally, at the end of that conversation, Burke asked the question, okay, are there 4 council members up here that want the garbage fee for 2006? And there were 4 people who said yes, they were voting on the budget as proposed. So we knew at that point, we could continue to propose amendments to try to move it out of there, but realistically that wasn't going to occur.
And the 4, just so everyone's clear, the 4 who were going to vote for it as proposed were Bill Castle, Frank Tower, Shirley Maddox, and was it Paul?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So Meredith, you don't like this garbage fee.
No, and so to your first question, we talked maybe an hour about how to avoid that, different amendments, but we couldn't get 4 votes. So no matter what, Paul out of the chute, Frank and Bill out of the chute, first sentence out, said they're in support of it. Shirley was the one that I was hopeful, in fact, that she would not vote for it, but in the end she said, no, I'm voting for it. So.
But I think what frustrates a lot of people is the 2 of you not only voted for the budget that had that, but you also voted for these floating docks. So, which is how much money?
$284,000.
All right. So how do you justify voting for a $284,000 want? It's not really a need. when we're also going to be charging people a garbage fee? How do you justify that?
It does seem contradictory. I guess a couple of things. There's two different budgets, it's the CIP budget and then it's our operational budget, so it is coming out of a different pocket, which ultimately still goes in the same one.
Right.
I understand that. But you still have to invest in the city. You still have to make some improvements and some additions and quality of life issues to the city. And the floating docks are an extension of the Riverwalk plan, the Riverside Park, the Leach Amphitheater. It's a matching grant. If we don't get the grant, we don't spend the money. It, to me, seems like the next progression, almost the phase 2 that's going to happen down at
But Brian, I think
park.
you asked the question at the meeting whether that grant money would be available next year if we didn't do it this year, and I think the planning director said it probably would be.
Yeah, actually, it was Burke who asked the question, but yeah,
Right.
and he said, and Jackson, I think's response was, it could be there. You know, we don't know if it will or won't be there, but the possibility is yes to apply for the grant next year as
So
well.
why not vote to delay it then?
Again, it's one of those issues that we may agree to disagree on. I felt like for two reasons. One, the safety issue with what we have with the current boat parking, if you will, down there. The ledge is very, very steep, and I think we need to have something there to provide boats to be able to park, not only just for Waterfest, but be able to park and enjoy Leach Amphitheater, Riverside Park, downtown area. It's part of the master plan overall for our river.
So really,
enhancement.
was this driven by the amphitheater?
I think the amphitheater and the River Park area is a linchpin in that whole redevelopment area, just like with the South Shore side and the Pioneer and some things that we hope will happen there at some point in time that will spawn that side of the river as well.
Cheryl?
On the same subject of the budget and the garbage fees and that kind of thing, there was also some discussion about moving, and I'm trying to remember from a few weeks ago, it seems like forever ago.
Yeah.
I think there was some discussion about moving the garbage trucks out of capital improvements and putting
Yes.
them into the general operating budget.
Yes.
Why was that not done?
No, it was in out of operations.
It
into
was just
yeah,
the
I'm
opposite.
sorry, I'm
That's
sorry,
what
yeah,
it was.
yeah.
It was just the opposite. As soon as I said it, I thought that doesn't make sense.
Couldn't get the votes to do it. That was part of the proposals, the amendments. That's we were very strong on that and couldn't get the 4 votes to do it.
That would have saved
That-
tons of money.
that
would
would
have
have
done
been
it
the
right
easy
there, right?
answer.
It was. I actually brought the document that I used for that meeting, and that was $252,000 that we could have, opened up in the operating budget. And my feeling was, if we replace these every 9 years, and that seemed to be the standard for the CIP is 10 years. In these times, we could probably get one more year out of that truck if we needed to do that, and that would have freed up, almost a quarter of what we were looking for,
Yeah.
a third of what we were looking for.
All right, now also in that budget process, Councilman Esslinger wanted to reduce some of the raises for the non-represented employees, I guess, right?
Right.
Yes,
You supported that.
absolutely.
All right, what was your rationale for supporting that? He wanted to go from 5% raises to 2%, was that what it was?
You want a 50%. It was a 50% cut. in
A
raises.
50% cut, okay, now why did you
Straight
go
cut.
for that?
Oh, absolutely. I went all the way to the end because I didn't think that Mr. Walling's approach of cutting 9 people was the answer.
Right.
I thought just, I don't personally like a cost of living increase. I mean, I haven't heard of that term in a very long time. Currently, our folks are enjoying a cost of living and a step, and I just don't know if we need to have a 2.5 just cost of living just because raise any longer.
But the argument of the other counselors was that this commitment was made to these folks, right?
Well, but things change. Things change every single day. And I think I talked about morale and I talked about vacation and benefits and all those other enjoyable things that our city folks are able to have. And I thought, if you go from a 5% raise to a 2.5% raise, if that's why you would ultimately leave your job, that would be sad to me because there's so many other things that go into it.
Brian, those were not compelling arguments to you?
They're
You voted against that.
I did, and a main reason why was that we were looking at 75 out of 600 employees or so, give or take, of the city to target them because they are not represented. They don't have the option to collectively bargain, and we were going to look at really trying to balance a budget on their backs, which was something that the council did. I think 2 or 3 years ago, they froze some some pay increases for them. My approach, what I'd like to do is, now that the union contracts are coming up after this year, is open up all employees and really have a conversation about everyone, because realistically, if we continue to pick on those 75 people who are not represented, we're going to drive them into, I can only be represented to get a fair deal around here, or we're going to drive them out of town, and I don't think that's
Well, who are
appropriate.
these 75 folks? I mean, what kind of positions are they in?
Mostly supervisory or city department heads. Those are the areas, mostly in
People
City
that
Hall.
would, are these
Command
people?
big salaries
Okay,
anyway.
Yes.
so these are people that are making more money than the people in the bargaining units, right?
Well, actually,
Generally.
some of them. I mean, we have some supervisors that are making, $40,000, and we have some of the unionized employees who are also making equivalent salaries.
What do you say to this argument, Meredith, that it's not fair just to target 75 out of 600 employees, and you may drive them into a bargaining unit?
Yeah, I certainly hope that doesn't happen, but I don't think our approach was targeting. I think that they have, again, it just still goes back to they enjoy currently a cost of living and the step increases, and I think that this was the appropriate time to go in and try to not eliminate, but taper some of that.
Wouldn't it have been leadership for, and I don't want to pick on the city manager, but wouldn't it have been leadership, say, for him to get these 75 people together and say something like, look, we're in a real crisis here. So for this budget cycle, we would like you willingly to accept 2.5% instead of 5%.
Well,
If employees know that the city's in a crisis, isn't it possible that they may agree to it so it's not like the council making a reduction?
I think that's a great suggestion, but I think he did come out and say that if we don't do the garbage fee, 9 positions were going to be cut. And then when we pressed him on what positions were going to be cut, he told us couple in fire, couple in police. So that was his approach. So that was his leadership.
All right. And you were happy with that? You were satisfied with that?
Absolutely not. That's why I voted with Paul. So.
Okay, I got you.
All right. Did you have anything else on the budget per se, or because otherwise I'm going to move on to another thing?
The only last thing I have on the budget is that Councilman Tower, for 2 years now,
Which tower?
Burke Tower,
Okay.
has said that there's problems with this budget. The councilors aren't as comfortable as they'd like to be in the assumptions behind the budget, the timing of it. Do you share those concerns that he's been raising?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
There are a
So-
couple things I would. Go ahead. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, go ahead. So what would you like to see done?
I would like to see some sort of internal productivity done directed by the city manager.
What does that mean?
I think we need to look at, are we adequately staffed? Are we overstaffed? Are we understaffed? Where are we? When I asked the question in the budget process of the city manager, have we ever had an assessment? The answer was no. And quite frankly, I think we need to be doing that, because I am not qualified, none of us are qualified to say that a city of this size and a budget of that size, $58 million, that we're spending everything where we need to be spending. We may find out that we're not spending enough, but how do I know that? How do I know that? And it's not that I don't trust the people giving me the information, but I think we need an independent source come in and look at what it is that we're doing to find out if it's the most effective.
All right. Now, what's the process for getting that study in place?
Well, I think it's going to come from either putting some pressure on the city manager or in the form of a council resolution authorizing the study to be done. The second piece of that is in the summer when we get our report back, Ed Noakes, the finance director, gave us all a report, and Burke was the one who said, are we going to get any type of workshop or information on this report from the city's financial yearly report? I think that's when we need to start the budget process in June or July, have some assumptions. I understand we don't know where the state is yet. I understand we don't know where everything is, but we can start projecting and looking at what it is that we might need to do rather than 1 month to make tough decisions for the city. That's not appropriate.
The
Let
school
me just add
district
one
does
quick
that.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that we can impact this year that we could not impact last year, or we can impact in 2006 that we couldn't impact in 2005, is goal setting. And that we can say, we want to start the budget process July 1st, and we want this information. I mean, I'm a big goal setter and accountability and that kind of thing. So I have a very strong feeling that we're going to do much more of his goal setting will be surrounding the budget. And that's something that absolutely we can do.
Has the city manager been lukewarm toward these kinds of suggestions? I mean, what's been your sense of his receptions? I mean, it seems to me I don't sense that the wheels are moving on this study idea, which says to me that there's somebody in City Hall that doesn't really want this to happen. Am I wrong?
I don't know. I think the reality is that we were sometimes in a bind, and I think this goes back to one of the things that I found most interesting after running is that the council, there are a lot of laws that govern when we can talk outside of the council meetings and what we can do, and we really have to be careful on what kinds of conversations we have outside the council chambers to try to help get some of these things moving. And I think what we need to do, and I would be willing, and I think Meredith would be too, is maybe we need to have more workshops with just the council, whether it's an executive session to do some planning, and then present the information out at the next council meeting to let people know kind of what we're looking at overall, and an outline of the next year. Because we can't do it on the fly, and that's what I think you're alluding to. There's not any of that going on right now, and I think that's what we need to start doing after the first of the year, especially.
Cheryl?
Well, speaking of goal setting, one of the things that you all did the other night was approve City Manager Dick Wolling's contract. It was a 3-year contract. I know Paul had suggested making it a 2-year contract. I know what he said about it would be a little bit more manageable, I think is the word he used. I didn't have a feeling myself just sitting back and watching this one way or the other, because either way you've got 6 months notice and you guys can be out, whether it's a 1-year contract or a 101-year contract, you know. But one of the things that you all discussed during your meetings in the spring and summer was goal setting for Mr. Wolling. What are some of the goals that have been given to him to achieve?
Well, we set the new ones up in February going forward. So all of the goals that he had for 2005, he satisfactorily achieved. I know he needed to put a customer service plan together, and he worked, and he gave us examples of things that he's done in City Hall.
Yeah, it's a little difficult on our end.
I can't remember what...
We came in kind of in the middle of the process, quite frankly.
But he did
but
achieve
he did
them.
do something.
He did do them all, though.
We wanted a memo on the debt level, what the debt level the city could achieve. We also wanted some information on the health plans and insurance plans, I believe, and if they were appropriate or not, and what we might need to do to rectify those. There's a couple of other memos we've received from him of work that he's done up to this point. And I agree. I think up to this point he's completed all those goals that were completed actually by the previous council, and then we will work in February to work on the new goals.
You know, one of the problems with this form of government we have, and we keep hearing people say, "Oh, okay, well, if we're not happy with the city manager, it just takes 4 votes."
Yeah.
Right? But I mean, absent some kind of major corruption scandal or sex scandal or something, isn't it true that Mr. Wolling, if he wants it, has this job until retirement? You're not going to sit here and tell us that if you have 7 goals for him and he meets 5 of them, that you're actually going to have 4 votes to remove him? He's got a lifetime job, doesn't he? I'm not saying that's bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I know, again, that I'm very strict on goal setting, and I think, like, for instance, we asked for a customer service plan. That won't be the same kind of customer service plan that I hope that we can put as a goal for 2006. It will be measurable, it'll be specific, you know, it's the whole SMART thing. I don't know. I think that if we continue to put some really tight goals in there, I mean, if he achieves them, then he's going to enjoy a job. Absolutely.
So you could see a scenario where if there are 5 goals and he clearly doesn't meet 2 of the goals, that you would vote to remove the city
manager. If there's substantial goals, but, you know, possibly. I mean, that's not my hope and not my intent, but I think that it's possible if you get, but you know what, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what 4 people think.
Maybe one or both of you can clear up a rumor that I've been hearing for the last year. But both of you were supported by Forward Oshkosh and Progress Oshkosh. And the rumor around town is that one or both of those groups, I'm not sure which one, would like to see the city manager removed. Is there any truth to that rumor? That one of those groups just doesn't like Dick Wolling, think that he doesn't set a good vision for the city? Are you willing to comment on that?
The only thing I'd speak to for fact is that they want a responsible government and they want accountability.
Both of them.
Forward Oshkosh is more politically driven than Progress Oshkosh, definitely. They really want accountability and they really want responsible.
And they don't think we have it right now?
Responsibility. They're challenged by it.
What, in their opinion, would be a responsible, accountable government? Would it be a mayoral aldermanic form, or are they not willing to go quite that far? I mean, what are their thoughts?
I don't know. I can't answer that because I'm not part of that group. I don't know.
Bryan?
Yeah, I can answer in terms of individuals that I've talked to either at different events or, again, grocery stores, phone calls, emails. I've had some people say that they're not happy with the city manager. I mean, we have people who come to the council meetings and citizen statements and say that as well.
Yeah.
No group has contacted me and said, on behalf of, this group, we would like to see the city manager or, anyone else in City Hall removed per se.
Right.
But I know that there are some people who are frustrated with where we are as a city and where they think we might be, and some of that stems from, I think, there's still an underlying question even with the directly elected mayor that I hear from people of who's the true spokesperson for the city or who's the one that should be out selling
Well,
things.
Let me give an example and have you both comment on it. I think both of you were, I know you were, Bryan, an enthusiastic supporter of the Five Rivers Resort. You voted for it also. I don't
Absolutely.
know if you, and you were enthusiastic
Oh
about
yeah,
it too.
I might be more enthusiastic than Bryan.
Okay. Is that now just as a citizen, my perception is that it was Jackson Kinney who was doing most of the public work on this. The city manager, I think, had even been quoted a year ago as saying that he wasn't really even aware of some of this things that were going on. Is that something where you would like to have seen more leadership from the city manager?
I would have liked to have had a message from City Hall, yeah.
Meaning, what do you mean a message from City Hall?
You listen to things that happen in Appleton, you listen to things that happen in Green Bay, and there's always either a press release or somebody's talking from City Hall. And here you kind of question, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Jackson? Is it going to be Richard? Is it going to be Bill? And I think even some people in the press are not sure who to contact. So yeah, I would like to have some sort of plan in place that the council members know, City Hall knows, the residents know. This is the spokesperson of the city.
All right, now why I'm going to talk about the particular project, Five Rivers, or do you want to say something?
Well,
else?
I wanted to kind of go back a little bit
ahead.
because we're still on the city manager thing. At council member, well, no, it wasn't council member statements and it wasn't citizen statements. She came up during one point in the meeting the other night. There was a woman, never seen her before.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Very upset about what Dick Wollink is making as a salary. Really outraged by what he's paying for insurance, and as was explained by Mayor Castle, he's got the same insurance plan that the city staff has, that the employees have. But I too was a little taken aback by the numbers that she sort of spat out there. Correct us if she's wrong, but she said that the city is paying $900 and some a month for his plan, and he's paying, what was it, Tony? Do you recall offhand? It was like 40 or 50, maybe $70 a month. Something. It was under 100. Were those accurate numbers?
I think they're fairly close because in the budget process, I had asked the personnel director for some information on the different insurance plans that we have and what employees pay and what the city pays. And I believe it's about a 5% breakdown that right now most city employees are only paying roughly 5% of their entire health insurance costs.
Is that going to be something that either of you, look at when it comes budget time next year?
Absolutely. That's similar to the cost of living raises and the 5 to 7% raises that we're hearing about.
Yeah.
I think it's a negotiable.
It is, and one of the things I was looking at when we did the budget process, we didn't get this far, but I even looked at, even if we set a 1% increase on all non-represented employees, monthly contribution, we were looking at anywhere from 70 to 170 per non-represented employee. And it's little each person, but it makes a huge impact in the budget. So I'm not saying we're going to go to a point where the employees are going to be paying half.
Right.
It's not going to be an overnight dramatic change, but there are things that we can look at and put some strategies in place that over the long term we help balance out some of those things, because we do have a responsibility to the city and to the taxpayers.
Right, and going back yet even a little further, back to the garbage fee, one of the things that someone on my website had suggested, and I had mentioned this some time ago, is, okay, I understand, I think we all understand, we're paying for garbage pickup now. It's part of our property taxes. But if it's no longer on the property tax where we can deduct it from our income taxes at year's end or in April, then it's coming off and we'll have to pay it under a different format. Is there going to be some kind of a line item reduction on our property tax bill showing where that has been removed?
As proposed, no.
I'm sad. No.
See, and there's where I think a lot of people are really a little PO'd by this.
It's actually it's an increase, Cheryl.
Yeah.
It's an increase. I'm here to tell you I don't like it. and I
vote
didn't
for
want it. But the reality is, it is going to be an increase. In 2006, that's one of the issues for 2006 is that we're going to now have over $2 million in the budget, and I'm curious already what we're looking at spending that $2 million for, because that's what we would have spent on garbage and recycling, and now that's moved to a tax, an additional tax fee, whatever you want to call it, and it's going to be a different line on your bill, and that money then in the next year's budget is there, and I'm curious already what we're going to be looking at using it
and
for.
so when people like Dick Wollink or Paul Esslinger come along and say, well, this is a more fair way of doing things, and you're already paying for it, it's just coming out of one pocket as opposed to the other, that's really not exactly true. It's coming out of a different pocket, but more of it is coming out.
Yes.
Yes, it is. It is, and I would even, I've heard you speak before. I think, or on your website, some discussion about the garbage fee based on volume.
Yes,
Volume
anyone
based.
studying
Volume
that?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
And my hometown back in Indiana went to that a while ago, and I'm going to make a phone call because I happen to know who the mayor is there. I'm just going to ask what kinds of things did they have to go through, and then start looking at some of those items, because realistically, if you're looking at a more fair way,
That's the way
to
to do
me
it.
That's the
Yeah.
would
fairest
be
way to do
more.
it.
Sure.
If we can't keep it in just a lump property tax bill,
Right.
include it there, I think we need to look at volume.
Well, is anyone in City Hall studying this?
We talked
brought it
about
up.
that, in the last meeting, that we want to be looking at that for 2006.
See, but that's the thing, Meredith. I mean, I
lot
hear a
of
lot of
things get
talk.
brought
I hear a
up.
lot of
Yeah.
talk in council member statements and
Yes.
citizen statements, and then they just die. I mean, does the council have to have a resolution for everything directing the city manager to study this?
Well, sometimes I feel like we almost have to, because the reality is, I as one council member cannot direct the city manager
Right.
to do anything. And so if the sense of the council, if we're unsure that the sense of the council is not there, then I'm going to put forward a resolution to say,
Okay.
I would, the city council of Oshkosh wants the city manager to explore X or Y.
Yeah.
If that's what it takes. I mean, I would hope, though, that we could work with the city manager, and I'm not saying that he's not going to work with us on this, but I
Right.
would hope that he would work with us on that, and we could get some things done.
Well, because one of the things that was talked about and never went anywhere was something that you brought up about how people are notified
Yeah.
about projects in their neighborhood parks.
Yeah, parks.
And, and we're going to get into the little situation from the Parks Board meeting the other night. But Meredith, you had asked that other communities be contacted and looked at to see how they notify. And, I was impressed with the comment that you made that even if other cities weren't doing something, why do we need to do exactly what another city does? We can set some kind of an agenda for ourselves, and we can be the leaders in this. What's happening with that? Is anybody looking at that?
I don't think there's been follow through, is
I,
there?
I can tell you from the Parks Board meeting that we just had, there were two things that I had brought up, and I know that's one of the items that you wanted to talk
Yeah.
about. One of them was a notification policy, and I had written a memo that I had sent all council members to Tom Stefani on two issues. One, the notification policy, and two, the board meeting time. The notification policy, there is another board member, myself, and at least one or two people from the Parks Department staff who are meeting in January to start exploring what we want to do as a notification policy.
Okay.
And my intent is to have something in writing so that we can say, if a bathroom's being fixed at X park, this who gets notified. Or if it's any project in a park, this, I don't want to necessarily pigeonhole ourselves to say that it's only going to be community versus, neighborhood.
Nobody understood that anyway.
Exactly.
Well, no.
we
Tom
need to-
Stefani, our
sense.
Parks Director, was all over
Yeah.
God's green earth when he tried to explain to you guys a few months back
Didn't
how
get it.
he goes about notifying. And the bottom line is he stumbled all over himself. I almost felt sorry for the guy while he stood up there trying to spew something forward. But he did a deplorable job. For a department head being paid the kind of money he's being paid, his performance was disgusting.
Yeah, we need to be able to have a policy, and I think
Exactly.
that would help him. As a Parks Director, he can then refer back to say this was a policy that was passed by the Parks Board and the City Council, that this is how we notify the residents of Oshkosh for park projects.
Well,
Maybe
that
she-
brings us to the other part of the park.
The pier.
Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. What brought
Yeah.
this on was the pier,
Right.
where you are in the Parks Board.
I am.
The Parks Board approved the Menominee Park Pier,
Yep.
donated by Otter Street Fishing Club on a Monday.
Right.
And then on Tuesday, the city council approved that.
Correct.
You voted on the council to delay it for 2 weeks. Right?
No, I voted no.
Right, you
I
voted
voted
no.
no.
You wanted to delay it for 2 weeks, right?
And
On
that
the
had no
council.
I wanted to
support.
delay it, but I didn't.
Okay, you didn't vote for it.
Oh yeah,
You were
and
the-
maybe you're right. I probably did vote to delay it. I didn't
No,
want.
no, I don't think there was a vote to delay it, but
Okay.
you
I
suggested that it should be
Suggested
delayed.
that there was not really
Not
any
enough
support
time
for it.
and-
All right.
Right.
So what happened with you, Brian? I mean, you had 2 cracks at this on the Parks Board and on the council, and it was only after you voted yes both times that now you think it was rushed. So what changed?
Found out some new information at the Parks Board. I said it, I think, in a previous appearance here when Attorney Williams and I were here at the Parks Board. How it was discussed was this is something that was in a plan at a previous point in time. There was a pier that was there before, not a permanent pier, but a semi-permanent pier that it was taken out every winter. And so, to me, with the information at hand, admittedly, I didn't know, and I didn't do the research, and I should have. I really should have, and I'll be the first to admit that. But since then, the information that's come forward, it sounds like that we really didn't have a lot of the questions. We didn't ask the questions, and we didn't have a lot of the answers to those questions, and we should have not moved that through so quickly. And if there was a structure in
Right.
place, then that wouldn't happen.
Well, but now it seems like what you're trying to do is change the rules of the Parks Board so that we no longer could have a situation where something passed by the Parks Board, say on a Monday, gets voted on a Tuesday. Is that what you're trying to do?
Well, I just simply asked if the Parks Board would entertain the idea of changing the meeting date, so that that would just provide at least for a few more days in between something that they passed and before it went to the council.
And it seems like you got very little support for that suggestion.
Correct. Most people said that it's not their responsibility as a Parks Board member. It's city staff responsibility of when things go to the council, and that the council, if they don't feel comfortable, should not vote on something. That was the rationale that was given. Some of the
That is
rationale that was given.
pompous. That is just so pompous for them to suggest that. Tom Stefani pushed this through. And I think he pushed this through at the urging of Otter Street Fishing Club. And I may be all wet here on that, but if I had to make an educated guess, and that's exactly what I'm doing, that's why he pushed this thing through.
Well, and I had a conversation with Mr. Wohler, another Parks Board member, and he had said something, because I had used the term fast-tracked, and he had said that no one ever said it was fast-tracked, and actually it was. I mean, Mr.
Tom Stefani himself
Mr.
used the
Stefani
word
said
fast-track
that this
in
was
a memo.
fast-tracked because Otter
Yes.
Street Fishing Club wanted to
get
donate
going.
it, and they wanted to get going
Yes.
on the building.
Yep.
And so the reality is that, you know what, I'm going to make mistakes, and that was a mistake. And the reality is now I'm looking at an opportunity where I've had a lot of people say to me, Brian, we don't need a new council rule that dictates a certain amount of time. We don't need to change the meeting date. What we just need to do is make sure the council doesn't vote on something. But the reality is, I'm not sure that I agree. I think sometimes you can have a mechanism in place that, you know, like for ordinances, we have to have 2 readings for an ordinance before it gets approved. The council can waive that two reading requirement if
Sure.
they so choose or feel the need to. If a new rule were in place that we would need 48 hours or 72 hours between a board or commission approval and a council approval, the council could waive that rule. I've already asked the city attorney if there's any legalities that we would be getting into with something like that, and he did say no. There would, you know, we're not getting into any legal issues of it. Now it's going to be up to the council to decide, and it would be a council rule. It wouldn't be a city ordinance or something like that. It would be the way we conduct business.
So will you be bringing something forward then?
I plan to. So that's how I notified the city or the parks director and the city council that, you know, if this doesn't occur here, that I would then be prepared to bring something forward to the council.
What about the issue of the membership on the Parks Board? There's been concern expressed that you've got special interests that are dominating that board. What do we do about that?
You know, I don't know. I think maybe we need to look at all the boards and find out. It's good to sometimes have someone who understands the rec area, who understands the baseball
sure.
diamonds, who understands the water aspects of things. Just like on the planning commission, it helps to have somebody who understands zoning and area landmarks, etc. So I'm not going to say necessarily that it's all special interest, but the reality is maybe we need to look at who's on the board and you know. The other problem is we don't have a lot of people beating down the door
That's
asking
true.
to be on the
That's
committees.
probably
and
the
if
root
these
of the
people,
problem.
I mean, if these people are really committed to serving, and the majority of the time the votes that they make aren't in conflict with what they have to do outside in the real world, I'm not sure what we do at this point. Then I don't want to see a bunch of empty seats and 2 or 3 people on a commission making decisions for the entire city.
What are your thoughts on this?
Could they even?
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
What are your
Quorums and
thoughts
so
on this,
forth.
Meredith?
I think that there's a benefit of having people who are passionate and have experience in those. So I think if they're too close to the issue, then maybe they need to abstain from it.
All right.
But they won't. I mean, unless it's a violation of a state ethics rule, they're not going to, and that's what happened here.
It
Is
could
Terry
be a
Wohler,
suggestion of
you
the
know,
director, though, or the head of the plan commission, or the whoever's leading the meeting. The suggestion, if there's
yeah, but in this case, I don't think Tom Stefani would have
Right.
recommended to Terry Wohler that he not vote, even though he is a member of the very group that donated this pier to the city. So,
I think it was a learning experience for all. I mean, I really,
Yes.
I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the Five Rivers Resort. Both of you are enthusiastic about it. Explain to the citizens of Oshkosh why they should be enthusiastic about this project, which seems very expensive. To me, it seems very risky, but you think it's going to be a good thing for Oshkosh.
I
Why?
think it's incredible in the elementary stage that they've even chosen Oshkosh. I mean, just even starting there. There's no duplication of services. The convention center is going to be huge for us. All of the room tax we're going to get back. That whole area has been vacant for I don't know how many years. I mean, ever since I can remember. And we are now finally going to have something down there that's going to be just a catalyst for so many more things. There's an element of risk in it, you bet. But the city has done an incredible job of putting parameters in place to really minimize that risk that could come back onto the city. So.
one of the things that they've talked about along that very vein is the pay-as-you-go option for a TIF. And while I'm not a huge fan of TIFs, just per se, I did say when we all debated last
Right.
year that pay-as-you-go. And at that time, I had not heard anyone in this city talk about that.
Right.
I think I was the first one who had mentioned it. And that really is the safest way for a city to protect itself. But the developer doesn't want that, obviously. So what, pray tell, will happen if the developer or developers comes forward and they say, no deal on this pay-as-you-go thing?
Well, we
Then-
have two
then-
options out there. We have the other option that Jackson and his folks and the consultants and everybody are real comfortable with if he chooses as well. I'm a supporter of having two different options. Working in the banking, I mean, if I only said you can only have a 30-year loan and it's going to be amortized the entire time and that's the only loan we can offer you, we wouldn't do loans. I mean, we would do very few. So we open up lots of different options, and we still have to protect the bank in every single one of those options. So I'm real comfortable with having two separate options, as long as they have those the risk factor mitigators in there that is going to protect the city. I'm okay with that.
All right.
I agree.
All right. I want to move on to a different issue. As you both at the December 13th meeting listened to some discussion about the troop withdrawal referendum that's been brought before the council. There were not enough signatures to get it into a direct legislation mode, which apparently the city attorney now says would have automatically put it on the ballot. I'm not sure if that's what he was saying originally. But regardless, Councilman Esslinger moved to, he's going to put it on the agenda for January 10th, I guess.
Right. I believe that's the first meeting
Right,
in
of
January.
2006. And so if 4 members of the council vote to put this referendum on the April ballot, it will be on the April ballot. So do you know yet how you're going to vote on this?
No.
Okay. And what kinds of things will help you to make up your mind?
It's hard because I think all of us may have a personal opinion on the issue, and quite frankly, that our personal opinions need to take a back seat on this, and we need to look at whether or not it's appropriate for the city of Oshkosh the council to debate this and the merits of it and putting it on the ballot. For me, I'm going to look at it from the different perspectives. The reality is, you're right, Tony. Originally, I was at the first meeting to hear about what the citizens were looking at doing with the petition drive before it even began at the library. And I had talked to the city attorney prior to that meeting, and I had said at that meeting that the city attorney had told me that regardless of the number of signatures that were collected, that the council would not have to put the referendum question on the ballot, that it was unlike the smoking referendum and other direct legislation. And now we're hearing that they could have
And I could tell you
forced
from
the
and I
council
could tell you from
if you speak.
I could tell you from personal experience that really hurt the petition drive.
Yes.
Because there were people collecting signatures who said, we don't want to have to sue the city
Right.
to get this on the ballot.
Right.
and especially in these tight budget times.
Right.
But then all of a sudden to find out that, oh no, this would have been direct legislation. I
Right.
felt it was unfortunate.
Right, exactly. And so, you have to, I think that has to weigh into it a lot. We also need to think about any precedents that have been set. Tony, you brought up the sexual predator location center. If I'm not mistaken, the mayor, how we elected a mayor, did not have signatures turned in. There was going to be a petition drive. However, the council decided to put it on the ballot. So we do have a precedent where, there are some stirs in the community, whether it's through any type of signature drive, informal, formal, or just conversations to get information back. The other piece too is, I'm hearing a lot about this as a national issue. This doesn't have anything to do with the city. And I think we need to look at all those issues. I'm not, I don't want to commit to say yes or no right now. We've got, 3-4 weeks before we're going to vote on this. I want to try to talk to as many people as I can. And let me tell you, I'm hearing a lot. I'm hearing a lot from people.
Well, a friend of mine at the university said, ask the people of New Orleans if the war is a local issue.
Yeah.
Because when the hurricane hit, half of their National Guard was out in Iraq and was not in New Orleans helping them.
Right.
I mean, Wisconsin, Oshkosh, in my opinion, is one crisis away from the war hitting home. And I think it is hitting home anyway when you look at where tax dollars go. Have you made up your mind on this yet? I
don't think I'll be supporting it without the exact number of signatures. The folks that have called me who are not happy with my decision on that, I guess I've just challenged them back that they're roughly 1,000 signatures short and there's still time to go get them.
Oh, I don't know if that was true.
2,800. I was told from Bob Peschel that you needed 2,800, and there was almost 1,800 collected. So that's 1,000 short, and you need to have them 6 weeks before the election.
I thought that you only had 10 days after a 60-day period to make corrections. I thought that the window was...
I believe that's the case.
Okay, I don't...
So I think these folks
there's multiple issues. They would have to start all over because they actually
okay.
extended 60 days beyond when they started circulating. Because I think you have a certain amount of time you can circulate them, and then you have to a certain number of signatures you get within that time.
Right.
Okay.
I think it would be great. January 10th is the meeting. We have the annual Martin Luther King Day celebration on, I believe, the following week.
Yeah.
I just think, just my opinion, obviously I support the referendum. I just think it would be so great to be able to go into that meeting and say the Oshkosh Common Council is giving the voters the opportunity to vote on the war. Obviously, it's not going to end the war.
Right.
But I just think, in my opinion, I understand your feelings, but in my opinion, it would just be tragic to have to go into that meeting, the Martin Luther King celebration, with the city council, for whatever reason, saying, no, this is not appropriate.
And I know there are a lot of people who are going to be frustrated that I'm not willing to commit either way.
Sure.
The reality is, though, information that I've received via email or phone or on my website, on your website, people are posting questions and thoughts that I wouldn't have thought of yet.
Sure.
So I want to be able to digest that information a little bit more. But now that we have the time, this isn't something we have to think about on Tuesday.
See, what I found interesting at the December 13th meeting, I was one of the people who spoke about this. What I found fascinating was the people who spoke against this were actually debating the war.
Right.
And what's fascinating, though, is they should be the ones most in support of putting this on the ballot, because that would give them a lot of time to participate in the debate about the war in open forums.
Right.
So that's my view.
The only thing I want to make clear is that it isn't that I don't want citizens to have a voice, because I've been very clear that I've been the biggest supporter of citizen statements. It isn't that I don't want people to have a voice, and I don't think it's not a local issue, and all those things. That isn't it for me. It's just, if there's a law in place that says you're to require this many signatures, then you should go out and you should do that. If you stop short, I mean, if Paul can get the 4 votes on there, I mean,
Sure.
I won't be supportive of it, but I mean, I won't be mad or frustrated. Oh, you don't, I won't be that, but I won't be supportive doing it short of not having enough signatures.
But does it not matter at all to you, Meredith, that the reason that they did not get the signatures was because they were given information from a city attorney?
Oh yeah, no, that disturbs me. But that disturbs me, and I don't know why he did or did not do that. I don't know, but I don't know if that's enough, if that's compelling enough for me to change my mind. At this point, I don't think I'll be supporting it, but if more information comes, I was moved by some of the things you said. I mean, I really was, and there is 4 weeks between now and then, but if we were doing it tonight, I wouldn't be supportive without the signatures.
One thing I want to touch on is, it's not pick on Meredith, but a lot of folks,
I knew it was coming.
a lot of people have been picking on you, saying that you are basically non-effective, you say a lot of things that smack of nothing more than lip service. Again, these are not my words, they're other people's words. You offered not one cost-saving measure during budget time. And those are just a few of the things that have been posted on the website and things that I've been hearing from people in public. How would you respond to that? Because personally, I don't agree with what they're saying, just, flat out agree completely. But, there's other people out there who feel very strongly about that. So how would you respond?
Well, the good thing is there's also a lot of people who think I do make a difference up there, because I'm hoping you're hearing at some point some of those things too, because I do hear those. One of the eye-opening things that I didn't mention in the beginning is that if you look at almost every single vote that comes up there, Paul speaks first, then Bryan, then Burke. They're up there first with the button.
You would have sucked at Family Feud if you
I
ever
would.
were a contestant,
I
right?
would.
Because you got to hit that button faster, Meredith.
I don't think that fast. I mean, I challenge you to go out and you go do it now, because so often I'll go, hello, that was my point. I mean, if you don't see that on TV, but I'll say that to Shirley, that's what I was going to say. But if you're not first out of the chute, and so then to say, well, yeah, I really agree with Paul. Oh, and yeah, I really agree with Bryan. I don't find that to be effective. So if I'm guilty of not coming out of the chute real fast. And I do that. I'm very deliberate when I talk. I'm not usually very emotional. I don't just start talking. I certainly don't talk on every single issue, but boy, when I get passionate about things, I was passionate about the garbage trucks. I'm the one who kept talking about automation and the automated arm, and I know how many counties, cities around us do it, and the containers and how much the small containers are and the big containers. Right. But if you can't get past getting the garbage trucks into the CIP, it doesn't even make sense for me to educate you on all the counties that have this automated arm. So I do hear that, and I guess I challenge back that I talk on when things are real important to me.
Well, and I think that you have tried to be effective, and I think that you have been effective in certain areas, and I think that you do care what the people think. I mean, this fishing pier thing, trying to get Tom Stefani to explain his notification process. I mean, you were the one who kind of kept driving that point home. Didn't get too far because he was all over
and maybe
the
I
place.
need more follow through. Maybe
But I
I'm
think you
guilty
have
of that,
tried.
but I really have. I know, for instance, the day after the vote, I called City Hall and I said, I'm still not comfortable with these raises. Is there anything that still can be done? I know the budget is passed, but I didn't sleep last night. I'm not feeling good about this. Actually, it was 2 days later. The tax bills had already been prepared and are already for print. It was too late. Because I even said, when you vote no on something, you can still bring it up. I mean, I was thinking about it. But I didn't talk about that at the council meeting. Right. I didn't put it on your website. Hey, I'm still fighting for you. But the reality is, the very next day. So I also do a lot of my questioning beforehand, so I don't get on camera and start asking a lot of questions. Like I know some people do. And that there's pros and cons, because I think that getting information out to the public is important. But I also do a lot of questioning beforehand, and that's really my style.
Yeah. I don't think anybody can say that the two of you are not accessible and open.
No.
Oh my
would
God.
hope not.
Yeah.
Remember the grocery store and the ice cream melting?
Yeah, I think both of you have been more accessible than probably any counselors we've had in a long time. In fact, I want you to talk about your Fifth Tuesday forums for a bit.
Incredible.
What I haven't had the opportunity to go to any of them.
Yeah.
What happens at those? How many people have you had showing up? What kinds of people show up?
Yeah, it's been great because we've had anywhere from 15 to 25 people, I think, at every one of them. There was one in the campaign and then 3 since the election. And we have talked about everything from 2-person police squad cars to what are the parameters of when the city plows and why. And we get good information. And the unfortunate piece is that I can't put everything on the City Hall's website. I've been told that it's not an option to do that. So I don't mind maintaining a website and keeping it out there, but I always feel a little worried because I don't want people to think I'm just promoting my website and go there. And really, when you go there, all it is just the Fifth Tuesday Forum information.
Right.
I tried to move everything to a blog so it's separately, and that's just really where the other information is. But it's great because we get people to come out, and every one of them we've had, there have been new people that I've never met before.
Oh, that's good.
Who's been there.
That's good. The one thing I've heard about you, Meredith, is there was the one meeting a month or 2 ago where you said that you had a conflict of interest. What issue was that?
That was the facilities charge. the
facilities fee
amphitheater.
charge. All right, and so, but yet you don't seem very clear about what that conflict of interest is.
Yeah, I didn't do a good job.
All right,
you
can
know?
you clarify it tonight?
It's a conflict with my work. You know, it's a privacy issue with the bank. You know, much more than that I can't say. And I didn't do a good job. I really didn't. And Paul was pressing me, and I was getting frustrated, like, don't press me. I went to Warren Craft, and I said, here's the situation. I couldn't even fully disclose it to Warren Craft, and I said, you know, should this be the case? Would a person have to? And he said, are you financially compensated or financially benefited from the decision? And the answer to that is yes. So I had to remove myself. And I didn't do a good job. Absolutely not.
All right.
So.
Different issue.
Sure.
The Oshkosh Northwestern apparently very soon is going to come out with a series on poverty in Oshkosh. They've now discovered poverty. All right. Nice that they finally got there. Some of us have been talking about it for many years here. They're finally getting to it. Do either of you have a sense of, assuming that they find that the problem of poverty here is probably worse than you might think at a surface level glance at the city, what can a local government do about something like this?
Well, we can bring people in who are very knowledgeable and educate us. I think we need to have the housing authority folks in here. Maybe we need to have a workshop with Brad Masterson and have more opportunity, because I don't know a lot about the opportunities, the options that exist.
Well, the options are even less
Right,
than
exactly,
what they were.
exactly.
because
But
what the federal government did
I
with
know
respect
what's
to
in the
Section
minutes
8.
that we get in our packets and
Yeah.
what's in the newspaper, and I need to be better informed in that.
All right. Well, is it time, Bryan, for the city to take back control of the community development block grant money? Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't there a time when the city council had to agree where that money was going to be used?
Yes.
And then we turned it over to the foundation?
Right.
And private organizations. Is it time for the city to take that back?
I don't know.
And by the way, in saying that, I'm not saying anything negative about the foundation.
No, I know you're not. I know you're
Private
not.
It's an
organization.
option.
And it is an option, and I would hope that, and I don't know enough to say who gets the money and who disseminates it to who, but I would hope that it's people who are a little bit more educated and knowledgeable on these issues so they can make the appropriate decision, because the reality is I can have 10 people come up and say that they need the money, but I may not be knowledgeable on the background issues.
Well, see, because one of
But they
the
did come in. They would
Yeah.
always come in and talk to the
where I'm
council.
going with this is one of the chief ways that a local government gets at poverty is through CDBG money.
Right.
And I assume that some kind of clash goes on behind the scenes that we don't see anymore between the foundation and those private organizations. Lots of counselors, when they made the shift over, weren't comfortable with that. But maybe that's something that the counselors have to look at. I mean, you seem like someone who, and you both do, who are looking forward to learning a lot.
Oh, absolutely. We're
Right.
like sponges.
So I'm sure you look forward to learning about poverty in the community.
Yes.
And then ultimately making that decision as to where that money goes. I mean, I just hope that something like that gets on the table at some point.
Sure. And those are some of the things that we as a council, we could probably be involved in terms of, planning different workshops. We don't have a workshop every night, but the reality is, though,
Oh, come on.
but
Once a
I mean,
month.
but once a month or once every other month. I mean, if there are issues that we need to tackle, then let's
Sure.
put it on the agenda and let's get it out there.
Sure, absolutely.
One of the things that you guys did at the meeting just Tuesday night was you set a new stormwater utility fee for 2006. It is, and I left my notes at home, but I believe it's like $49 and something.
Roughly, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's
something
something
like
like $12 a quarter, right around there.
Yeah. How much did it go up? Do you know?
I want to say it was probably $20 or so. I want to say for the entire year.
60-some%.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a
People
big-
are going to say
I
what
know.
they've been saying about everything.
Right.
We can't afford this. We can't afford this.
Right.
But I will just say that because again, the same woman who came up talking about Dick Wolling's salary was talking about how she was telling friends in other cities that she pays for her water runoff, and they laughed at her. And the reality is, this is one of those mandates from down on high. This is a
Yes.
federal mandate from the EPA, and communities have been ordered to put these types of things into place. And basically, it's $40-some per ERU, and that's equivalent runoff unit. I don't know how they calculate it, but most properties, the average is 1 ERU.
Right. Most average homes in the
So-
city are going to pay about $48 or so a year for that.
So, that's one thing that we can't beat up on the city council about, because that's a federal mandate.
Well, but on the same token, we had asked some questions too. What exactly are we doing with this money? What projects are funded? And why are we doing it? Sometimes you have to ask those prompting questions. And if we can somehow maybe be a little bit more proactive, either in the the city manager's letter or in our agenda, that we say this is in lieu of a federal mandate or in lieu of a state mandate or whatnot, then we have a little bit more opportunity to be proactive about it so people know.
Being more
idea.
user-friendly, I know that's something that we all talked about during the campaign. I know in other communities, of course, they are communities where they have an elected mayor, but their city leader puts out a newsletter, and it comes out maybe once a quarter or a couple times a year. Is it possible that the city could do something like that?
Absolutely.
I
Sounds
realize
like a
it's
goal.
going to be an expense,
Right.
and some will say, just throw it up on the website. Well,
No, that's
some
not
people
being-
would rather get something in the mail because there you're receiving it, you're handling it, you're forced to look at it as opposed to going to a website.
Well, and can we combine it with other things that we're already
tax
mailing
bill,
out?
the
Can it go out
water
quarterly
bill.
with some different bills and whatnot? That's an option.
Quick question about PMI, the manager of the amphitheater.
Yes.
It looks like they're charging a pretty hefty fee for community groups to use this. Are you satisfied with PMI?
I don't think it's unfair for me to say whether or not I'm satisfied. I want to see a full year.
Okay.
I did say in the decision-making period that I, looking at the two items, I supported more of the Supley Hopper plan that was out there. However, I think PMI can do a good job, and I want to see them do a good job.
But would you like to see a lower rate?
But I would also like to see an option, a better option for community organizations, especially the non-for-profit. That's not just $1,000 less or whatever it is.
You
than
at the meeting the other
regulars.
night in your council member statement expressed some enthusiasm about next year's season.
I have some initial enthusiasm. I do. But it doesn't address the non-for-profit,
All
though.
right.
There was nothing in there. So absolutely to your point, I don't think that's resolved yet.
All right, you'd like to see it more doable for community
Doable.
groups.
It's like user-friendly, but it's not user-friendly. But yeah, more than just, yeah, absolutely.
All right. We have an election season coming up, as you both know.
Already?
Thank
Yeah,
God.
already. What both of you, we don't have a lot of time here yet, but what's your philosophy about your role in the race? Are you going to endorse candidates?
No,
You won't.
I don't think so.
Will you?
I don't know if I'll publicly come out and endorse candidates. I certainly tend on going to the forums and listening and watching. I think it's going to be interesting this year. We were talking for two reasons. One, last year, all the different websites and the news program, there was a lot of attention, especially with the directly elected mayor. I hope that there's as much attention this year. I hope that it's that the off year with the non-mayor election, that it's not ignored or we don't get a lot of people running.
Okay.
And I think on the other thing too, there's going to be a lot of involvement for people running. They're going to have a lot of website questions to answer and television programs.
Probably almost
and
too much.
I think there needs to be some sort of coordination at some point here, and hopefully some groups can do that. But it'll be interesting to see. Like Meredith said, I'm glad it's not us yet again, but it'll be interesting to
That'll
see.
come soon enough. Another short year from now, and
Right.
you guys will be doing that again. So basically, just in summary, no real regrets about
No.
doing what you
No.
did?
Not
and-
at all.
regrets.
Okay.
Not at all.
Looking forward, still eager, still learning. I mean, we make mistakes or wish we would have said something or did something different, and that there's a huge learning curve here. Burke always talks about you have to run 2 years, no matter if you want to or not, because the first year or the first term you're just completely learning, and the second year can really be effective because you're making a lot of great points, and I'm kind of going, God, I really should have done that. Oh God, and all I would say is we've got a long time yet to make a difference and to be effective. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're just about out of time, but for what it's worth, I mean, obviously we all ran against each other.
Yeah.
I think we were strong opponents.
Yes.
But, for what it's worth, I'm very sincere when I say I like what both of you are doing. Obviously, I still don't share the same views on some issues.
Sure.
But, by and large, I like what I see the two of you doing.
thank
and I
you.
think you're doing a good job.
Thank you. I
So-
appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
So, anyway, any closing thought real quick from you?
No,
I guess
we're
not.
we gotta wrap.
They're all of a sudden we're being told to wrap up. So thanks for being here
Thank
to
you,
both
Cheryl.
of you.
Thanks,
We'll have you
Tony.
back.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tony, and thanks to you. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.